Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jackie Clark, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am super excited to welcome another amazing guest. We have got Jill. Can you please tell everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm Jill Harper-Hill and I'm in Newcastle-upon-Tyne, so in the northeast of England, where it's
Amazing.
pretty cold at the minute. And I'm a therapeutic coach, which means that I blend therapeutic approaches with coaching, and I mainly work with a client base of neurodivergent women, and even more specifically, mostly ADHD type women.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'm super excited to get into this conversation, being a neurodivergent, crazy woman. So that's a great place to start. So let's start at the beginning of your story, though, and where you realized that something had to change and your kind of healing journey started.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think it was around, I don't know, it was before lockdown, before COVID times. I'd been in education for 15 years, probably working in the same school. And I probably had a very fixed idea of who I was and what my life was going to be and what my career was. And I'd been very quite driven with my career, quite focused on that being the main part of my life. And I would have thought that I would be in one career until I retired. I've been in one school for a very long time and I'd worked my way up and had been senior leadership team. But by the time I was 30, specialised in inclusion. And then various things happened. I became a parent, I became a carer for somebody in my family, and that all put extra pressure. And I think, particularly as a neurodivergent woman, when we can focus in on that one thing that is with my sort of hyper focus, my interest, my life, everything was into my career. And then when other things forced me to put some of my energy outside of that, realizing that I couldn't hold all of those things, and it just made me question sort of what I wanted and who I was, and all of those really big questions, while having to actually hold some big things in my life at the same time. Um, and so I left that career with nothing to go to. And that was the biggest relief that I've ever had. And for quite a long time, just the relief of thinking every single day, oh, I'm not a teacher anymore, created the space to think about what I really wanted and to finally get in tune with who I am and what actually motivates me and drives me. And it turns out it's extremely different to what I thought it was. So if you'd spoken to me back then, or 20 years or 15 years ago, you would have met a very different person who would have told you very different things about what they wanted from life. Um,
Wow.
so from there, went on and went back to sort of, well, I had a lot of time out and thought about what I actually wanted to do, retrained career wise, and live a completely different life, um, to the way I lived and the way I thought I would always live. It's really challenging when you have to think very differently about who you are and what you want.
Oh,
Mm.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so interesting, like when you look at that process, it is when you're hyper focused on something, it is really difficult to think that anything will ever be different. But
Yeah,
actually, as you said, like when all of these other things come in and you're trying to do lots of things, it really changes the dynamic. And I guess with teaching specifically and being in a school, like there's a very set structure and a very set way of having to be and do and
yeah.
exist. And was that part of the issue for you?
I think that's a huge appeal for neurodivergent people. I think teaching and education has a big draw for neurodivergent people in quite a toxic way because it offers us high degree of stimulation, variety, novelty, challenge on a daily basis. There's a lot of dopamine to be found. And for some of us, for a lot of us who need an external structure to keep us in, it offers that too, that sort of institutionalization of there are bells, there are things that have to happen at a certain time every day. Your meals are at a certain time, the breaks are at a certain one. Obviously, as a teacher, you don't usually get a break, but it's the break the break time is in the establishment. The things happen on a regular basis, and that's incredibly calming and stabilizing for neurodivergent people who need a structure. And for those of us who like structure, there's a lot that it offers, but it also, like I say, it has that toxic pull of bringing people into a hyper focus and making that our lives, and that's normalized. That work, 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 work. This is everything for you. This is, our school. I don't want to say too much about the particular school, but prided itself on calling themselves the purple family. It became everything in people's lives because the uniform was purple, and it was a whole ethos around, this isn't just a job you come to, this is your family, this is a way of life. And I think that's very intoxicating and appealing, but it's also very dangerous because it means that we're on that laser focus and it becomes normal to sit with a laptop open until at least 11 o'clock every night. And that's the expectation. And it's normalized and it's glorified, and you're winning at the job and you're doing your best if you're doing all of those things. And I bought into that fully. I was really proud to be part of that. And now that I step back and realize it was really like being in a codependent, toxic relationship. Yeah, and I think it's like that for young people as well, with the pressures that I now think about that will put on people to attend, against all odds, get into school, be there, part, it's not healthy at all.
No.
But like I say, I think it all feeds on a lot of people who think that that's good for them. Like, if you'd asked me, I would have said I'm the type of person that really believed in that. If you need something doing, ask a busy person. And I was that busy person, constantly on the hamster wheel, up and doing and never stopping, glorifying busyness and glorifying that version of productivity. Which now, standing back, so unhealthy for me and for a lot of people as well. For a lot of you, I think schools are like communities of dysregulation. You've got an awful lot of dysregulated young people bumping around next to a lot of dysregulated adults, all the way up to the head, which is another topic that probably something that's way beyond my remit to start sorting out what we do about all of that. But I think that's a huge cultural shift in the UK that would need to happen to benefit everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that it's just the UK. I think that, I mean, South Africa, I can definitely agree, is, very similar. But I've got friends who live in New Zealand. I know people from America, and
Right.
you hear very similar
Yeah.
stories of teachers, yeah, across the board, which is really,
Yeah.
really sad, really, really sad. But I
I don't
guess
really
like
know what we're doing. I was going to say, because we take everything that we know to be true about what humans need and how we thrive, and then we do the opposite. But yeah.
yeah. Oh no, I think there's a massive conversation in the world that needs to happen around the schooling system. And there are people who are starting to have that conversation and really challenging. I know in the
Yeah.
UK specifically, which is really great to see. And I do think that if the UK changed its education system, you would see a ripple into other countries as well in those changes. So I do think that that is a really good piece of work that's being done. But I guess for you coming out of that system, and you said like you were so bought into that idea, so bought into that, like, that ethos and that family and all of those things, and then you've come out of it. What did you have to like understand about yourself or like embrace about yourself to actually make that shift and be like, this isn't for me, I need to do something else?
Yeah, well, that's huge because, when I'm saying that about feeling that that was my family, my life, It was my whole identity. You're not just somebody who does teaching or does education. I am a teacher, and letting go of that identity. But it's also the loss and the grief that comes with that, and leaving part. There was a huge amount of relief. Believe me, the relief sort of engulfed everything, sort of outweighed all of the other feelings. But even on the day I left the dress that I was wearing. I wore this dress that I wore a lot in that role. And there was one particular one that really sort of like personified, embodied this sense of that identity. And I took that off as I left the school building. I put it in the bin. And that was like me sort of symbolically stripping off. I took off my watch that day. I've never put it back on again. So there was a real literal shedding of an identity that I felt amazing about doing. And like I say, I went into a period then of not working, just enjoying the relief of that for quite a while. And like I say, COVID came along. There were family circumstances that meant that that was what I needed to do. But then became, the phase of rebuilding and coming back together again, and with that, I think if we're neurodivergent, obviously I've been in burnout. I've been probably living in a constant burnout for years, and not knowing that this sort of threat response, really, of the over busyness, the fawn response, the people pleasing, the appearance of productivity, didn't really realize that that wasn't me. And so peeling that away and starting to lose the knot of tension, to lose that feeling of always being under threat, of waking up in the morning feeling like, what have I not done? Am I in trouble? Letting go of all of those parts of myself allowed other things to come in. But then it was realizing, like, well, what has been going on there, and analysing and unpicking like who I had been or who I was becoming, what was there. And I had started out my career being interested in psychology. I'd done that in uni as part of my degree, but hadn't been encouraged for various reasons to continue with that. A lot of it's about conditioning and sort of expectations. You go to uni, you do a subject that leads into a particular type of job. Don't do what you are. A lot of it is about not listening to yourself at all, and not tuning into what your gut is telling you at any point, because just do what you're meant to do. But then I was like, oh, what do I want to do? I want to actually work with people. And so I began with what career I wanted to do. And that was the process. I think a lot of people are pulled to doing work that speaks to ourselves. Like, we want to work with people who are a version of ourselves a lot of the time. And so that allowed me to do a lot of work. So I started off with training and coaching at a fantastic organisation called Ride the Wave, because I'd met somebody who had trained with them. And I kind of had that feeling of, well, be a bit like her. I want to do what she did, to be, it's just that initial feeling of whatever she's got, I want a bit of that. And starting to do that work and receiving coaching and allowing myself to open up to different ways of thinking led me to be sort of questioning myself and why I was experiencing the life the way that I had done, which led me to discovering ADHD and discovering that as a part of my identity. And I know that it's all over, it's media and everywhere at the minute. Talk about, potential for overdiagnosis and does everybody think they have it? But, even back whenever that was 5-6 years ago, it wasn't quite as talked about. So I felt like I was discovering this secret thing of like, oh, that's what that is. And oh, that's a thing. It's not just me. And that allowed me to put like a framework to what I've experienced since being a child, looking back at my school reports every single year, the blaming and the shaming of, oh, if only Jill would learn that it's unacceptable to hand work in late. Like, I know it's unacceptable to hand work in late. I don't need to learn that. I just need someone to support me to do differently. And so going back to all of these things, being told constantly that, unless I learn to concentrate and be consistent, then I would never achieve my potential. All of these messages, we know that as neurodivergent people, that we get at least 20,000 more negative messages about ourselves before the age of 18. And then that continues and compounds all the way through our lives. But being able to know that that's not me, that that's not my fault, because we've internalized that that's something that was somehow to be blamed for or to be ashamed about. Um, so being able to go back and work around, that's why I struggle with handing stuff in. That's why I struggle with being organized, with concentrating on things that are really boring that I don't want to do. It's, going through all of that process and learning about that was a huge turning point, and then allowed me to go on. And like, I'm talking about 5 years now of doing the work and learning more and more about myself and learning more about the way I describe it to people I work with as being like a homecoming. It's like a picture coming into focus of like your actual identity. Um, some things you're letting go of and some things you're letting in and embracing. Um, it just it it allows you to see who you really are and get in tune with what you really want rather than all of the conditioning and all of the cultural messages that we've been bombarded with.
I love that idea of a picture coming into focus.
Yeah,
It's such a beautiful way of describing that process. Because I mean, yeah, if I think about growing up and being in school and having dyslexia and the messages and the things that people would say and the constant, oh well, if you just concentrated a bit better, it
yeah,
would you would be able to do better, and like just that real lack of understanding. And I do think that there's a really great, like, it's so great for kids nowadays to have all of this understanding of all of these things. And potentially maybe there is an overdiagnosis at the moment, like that, these things do swing in roundabouts. We know that. But at the same
yeah.
time, I don't necessarily think that it's a terrible thing if it's being utilized in the right way and being used to actually give, children, but also adults a different way of doing things and a different way of looking at things. I think there can be a really positive to that. Um, yeah.
I think the more we have language around things, and I think the tools and the descriptions of the experiences can almost be universal, because really when you look at, diagnosis like ADHD, a label like ADHD, it just means that we experience those things that everybody experiences, but we experience them with a greater frequency or a greater impact on our lives. So actually, like you say, it's like I was think a rising tide lifts all boats, doesn't it? If we all know this language and we all know some tools to work with this difficulty, whatever it might be, then anyone can use them. It's not, you don't need to give yourself a label or a name or a diagnosis. You can just go, oh, I struggle with doing this. What can I do about it? And I think, like you say, that way I describe it of coming into focus on ourselves, I think we all need that, because I think there's a lot in modern culture. We're encouraged to not listen to our gut and not meet our needs, and power on through and just keep pushing and do more. And that's, I don't know who that's good for. Maybe a very small percentage of the population might thrive on that. But I know that, if we have got an ADHD type brain way of being, then that's not a thing we need to be, we can't just keep going and do more and push harder, listening to what we actually want, adding in things that make us feel, I think when we feel better, then we can do more. And when we feel good in ourselves, then things open up to us. And if we all start from that point of view, well, whether we're ADHD, not anything, you know, it's it's a universal sort of beneficial message, really.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so when you were talking earlier, you were saying about when you left teaching, so coming out and feeling this massive like relief, but also obviously all of the other emotions as well, because these things come in lots of varieties.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so were there moments where you found it really hard? Like, were there moments where you thought you'd made the wrong decision leaving teaching, or Like, were there any moments where it just like you weren't really sure where you were going?
Time, all the time, like every day of the week, today, right? But I don't think about going back to teaching. I'll put that in a box. I think about being in education. I think about working with young people and think about what I could do to share what I now know with the world of education. Because even as I was like I say, I was school leadership for inclusion, but what I knew then about supporting people's needs, accommodations, neurodiversity, I was saying neurodivergence, but neurodiversity, the whole range of. It's just like it's a completely different realm of understanding. And I've been on a journey, I think, of trying to figure out how to use what I can do and my skills and my learning. Where is that best placed? And I think that's a journey I'm still on because there's part of me that would love to go back in and talk, to young people and to school and leadership teams. But I'm not sure whether there's the appetite for that in schools or whether certainly not the funding for that. It was a question all the time, like, what am I doing? Is this the right thing? But then I stop and I look at the life that I've built, which is a complete rebuild. There's nothing that is not different. And I would never, ever, ever change the pace and the autonomy and the choice that I have over what I have in my life now. So there's no going back, but there is a constant tweaking of, well, how do I get this to be an even better fit? Because now I'm self-employed. I choose how I work, where I work, when I work. I'm able to listen to, like my energy rhythms. Like I know that I don't want to speak to another human before 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to. I sit in a room that's got everything in that makes me feel comfortable, calm. I get out, walk during the day and things like that. So I just feel like there's no going back on any of that. And I'm really glad that I came to that breaking point of stepping away from everything that I thought everybody had to feel like that. I thought you had to get up and, there were mornings when I'd be driving to school. Like, this sounds awful. I'm going to say something here that I don't know why I'm sharing this. But I used to think if I could just have like a little car crash, just enough to like not have to go into work, want to be hurt or, there was nothing to worry about there. But I did just used to think, oh, if something would happen that meant I didn't have to go in there, just thought that was like how you lived. But if I thought I had to do another 30 years of that, yeah, what's going on?
I literally am laughing over here because I remember having those exact same thoughts.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like a little car crash or something where I have to be in hospital like overnight, but nothing too
yes,
serious.
yes, that's
Just a little
right.
bit of a break from life.
I think if I could just be hospital, just break a little bone, nothing too catastrophic that would actually hurt or anything. But if I could just go be taken care of, oh my goodness, like that's not right, is it? Like, yeah. And so I talk to people a lot of the time now about we need to build lives for ourselves that we don't want to escape from. And that is totally possible, that we need to find out what that thing is that we want to do and build our life around that rather than just tolerating and pushing through. And yeah, and I think that especially neurodivergent people talk all the time about like getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think there's a place for that when you want to go, when you want to, explore outside your comfort zone. I think the majority of the time, if we can get into a place where we are by and large regulated most of the time, where we are comfortable, because like I say, that's when our imagination opens up and we have more executive functioning capacity. We can do more, the less sort of extended we are and less expanded we are outside of our tolerance zones. And we can do anything when we want to do it, but pushing on through things that are boring or too hard or just not for us, we need to give that up.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, 100%. I think like this is something that I find so fascinating because people who listen to the podcast regularly will know that I'm an absolute nervous system like nerd. And it's so interesting when people talk about this idea of getting out of your comfort zone because exactly like you're describing, like it's it needs to be a structured thing that you're doing. You can't just live outside of your comfort zone in every single aspect of your life all of the
Wild.
time and
Yeah.
just constantly be on edge. And I think like earlier on you were describing that like, you lived in burnout for so long without even realizing it. And I think so many neurodivergent people do
Yeah.
because of that, exactly what you're saying, that thing of like, well, actually if I am being successful according to the world, I'm doing all of these things well all of the time. And actually, as a neurodivergent human, like it's really hard to have your focus everywhere when actually you want to hyper focus. So
Yeah.
it's
And not
that
be
thing of
spread
like, yeah, not be spread
so
so
thinly.
thinly.
Mhm.
Because like I know for myself, like when I can hyper focus in on one job, one task, one project, one contract, like just be all in that. I'm like, yes, this is great. I love this. This is like it feels so good. But when I
Mhm.
have to have overlaps of things and I have to
Mm.
have like two or three things all going at the same time, I can do it. I can make it happen, but it's not fun. It's not pleasant.
There's
You
going to
know,
be a
it
cost.
yeah, exactly. There's going to be a cost, and the cost is always going to be me.
Yeah.
Like that was the realization. Like the
Yeah.
cost is always going to be me in these situations. And I
Yeah.
think that that is the big thing, like actually shifting away and saying like me is not a cost that I'm willing to pay anymore. Like I am
Yeah.
not willing to have that be the cost. So
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to say no to things, or I'm going to only say yes to things with certain terms or certain boundaries or certain ways that feel good or, fit in with what I want to deliver and how I want to live and, what that structure needs to look like. Because, like, you said you don't want to talk to another human before 10 a.m. I'm exactly the same. I'm like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to. And normally at 10 a.m., I actually just want to go to the gym and do a stretch class or a
Yeah.
yoga class or, like I want to have a really slow morning. And that's the whole point, I think, when you're going through this process, you're getting to know yourself, you're working out what works for you. Like, it gives you that ability, especially running your own business, it gives you that ability of actually saying, okay, how am I going to do this? How do I want to shape my life? Like, what do I want this to look like? And for somebody who's neurodivergent, I think having that flexibility and having that ability to say, I am going to be in complete control of all of the elements that impact me, it
Yeah.
shifts something so dramatically, which I
Yeah.
think is really, really important for, people to hear and people to understand and to know that they have that option. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be that whether it's school, whether it's corporate, like it doesn't have to be that structure that other people, because some people really thrive in that structure. Some people absolutely love that structure, and that is a great, like, absolutely fine. But I think it is being able to, as you said, listen to your gut, understand yourself, like do the things that work for you rather than just what
Yeah.
everyone else says you should do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think flexibility and autonomy are absolutely everything. Because like, so we don't have that cortisol spike that gets us up going in the morning. We need a slow slide into the day, and then hey, I'm on fire at afternoon at about 7 p.m. I have to fit. We do have to fit in with the world and having kids and families and everything. But being able to largely move with those rhythms is so powerful because we're not consistent. People, the inability to be consistent, I would take on as a failure for so many years. And now that I know the consistency doesn't mean having to show up at 9 a.m. every morning, but it does mean I'm consistent with my values. I'm consistent with my sort of mission for what I'm doing in the world. I'm consistent with my, um, care for myself, my family, things that are important to me. So consistency looks different. And it's not that we're not able to do it, it's just we need to shift that focus onto what it means. I talk to a lot of people, neurodivergent women, who think that they want to talk to me about how to not lose their keys and not lose their stuff and be on time to get places. I'm like, we need to come back quite a few levels from that, because when we can get into a place of regulation, when we're not feeling like we're being chased or in trouble all of the time, then we can, we can cope with the system for where to put the keys. We don't lose the stuff because we're not in a place of absolute fight, flight, rush. It's just taken everything way back to a point. Regulation work is absolute base level of let's start there, lose that knot in the stomach. I think I knew if I was to mark a turning point of when I knew that my life had changed or I'd really stepped into a different version of myself, it's when I no longer had that knot in my stomach that had been there forever. I couldn't even have told you when it came or what it was, but it was just, I was like, that's that ball of dysregulation, and waking up always in the morning thinking, like, what have I not done already? Regulation work will sort that right out. And that's where we need to start with people bringing themselves into focus, their gut into focus, actually honouring that. And the rest, the growth from there can be crazy. So it's never really about the keys or the clutter or the timekeeping. Like, they're just the very, very tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, so you've said you've given us a lot of I guess like really big kind of shifts that you had as you went through this process.
Yeah.
And I always like to ask people like what was your biggest belief change or like outlook change on life from before to now? Do you have one?
Yeah, no, I think I've probably already sort of talked about that. I think it's quote Dolly Parton, the great philosopher Dolly Parton, says he like find out who you are and then do that on purpose. I think it's about rooting and grounding in you, yourself, your needs, your pace, um, you know, feeling good, embracing that as a way of life, not just like a strategy or an add-on, but it's like coming fully into starting with what you need, who you are, and then everything opens up from that. And that is the biggest shift, because before it's the locus of evaluation. Before, I was looking outside myself to know whether I was doing the right thing. And so, that big shift is from looking outside to see myself reflected back, and am I doing okay? Am I pleasing you? Am I the right version of me? I think a lot of us go around life thinking, am I being the right me for you? Am I being the right me for the world? But when you shift that to being, does this feel right? Your gut tells you absolutely everything, that feeling of, and if we can trust that and know that, we can run everything through it. I talk to people about, the fountains and drains test. Does this feel like a drain or does it feel like a fountain? Does it give to me or does it deplete me? And like literally every minuscule decision of the day can be run through that. Is this something that's adding or is it draining? And if it feels like a drain, no, thank you. But having it changes relationships as well. I think once you know that, like, it's growing that strong core and being like that, the strong trunk of the tree that can weather the storms. Once you're standing firmly grounded and solid in yourself, that anybody else can be doing whatever they want outside of that. The weather can be blowing in all sorts of different directions, but it's not going to get in or knock you down. So I just think that shift from outside to inside is the biggest.
Yeah.
But it's something that's not tangible. It's hard to describe that, because in some ways that's a very subtle tweak. But I think a lot of people are out rather than inward focused.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. I do think that that is a massive part of the healing journey, that level of self-awareness that you gain in who you are, where you stand, like what is going on for you, how you feel your feelings. Like I think all of that kind of encompasses in that same, how do we stop looking
Yeah,
outwards and start looking inwards?
yeah. And it's that, yeah, allowing other people to do that too, realizing that other people's behaviors, opinions, thoughts are theirs.
Mhm.
and it's not, like I say, it's just not that, we can have relationships with other people and we can stand as, ourselves,
Yeah.
but what you say is yours, what you feel is yours, what you project is yours, learning, seeing that what other people are projecting is theirs rather than blowing with the wind all the time of what people think or what people say, and doing this because I think I need to do it for somebody else. And I think also, it goes from the levels of doing things because you should do them. But I think another big challenge for me has been around doing things because I could do them. And I don't know whether that's something that resonates with a lot of neurodivergent women, that you're like, oh, I could do all of these 1,000 things. And just because I could do them might not mean that I should be doing it, might not be the right thing for me. And I think that's been I think that's probably quite a recent learning point for me. Not to feel like just because I could do something. So I think being an ADHD woman, we could probably watch a YouTube video on anything and then do a reasonable job of it within the next half hour. But just because we could, yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's the right.
absolutely. Oh yeah, 100%. And I think like it's that thing of like I think that fountain and drain thing is a really good measure of just because you can do something doesn't mean it's always going to light you up, doesn't mean it's always going
Yes,
to fill you up. Like just because you're
yes.
good at something still doesn't mean that it's always going to fill
Oh,
you up.
yes,
Like, you can have skills in things and actually still not enjoy doing them. Like I think that that is something that
absolutely.
really don't realize that just because you're good at something doesn't mean that it actually feels good for you
I
to
mean, you
do
have to
it.
do it.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
absolutely. I think there's a massive like confusion in that. And I guess like if we look at like for you going through, because I guess going from teaching to then kind of having a bit of a break and then starting your own business, like how did you navigate that and decide what you were going to do and what you weren't going to do and like
I'm laughing a lot when you say that because there has been this. I did go gung ho, all guns blazing down the route of starting a business. So I'm quite, I think, yeah, quite an entrepreneurial spirit. Um, that I think, constantly has to compromise because of, the life I actually lead and family and things. But I had a great idea for business. I was like, this is great. This has got to happen. And immediately just went because I could do it, could absolutely do it. And it started off, as a great immediate success. Lots of people on board, lots of people really interested, a lot of buzz. I got a lot of people who know me because of it. And then about, I don't know, I was going to say 3 months in, I don't know, it was about probably 30 seconds into launching it, I realized, what do you want to do? This. It's not that I didn't think, I still think it's a good idea to this day, the business that I started. But I had this immediate realization of, but this isn't for me. This would be a great idea for somebody else to do. And so I'm all right with that now because it's like I understand what went on there. That like exactly what you said there. I could do this. I could pull out these skills and I could make this happen. And I could probably do a pretty good job of it. But is it good for me? Do I want to do it? No. And what I do love is my client work. That the business I'm talking about, by the way, in case people are wondering, it was around gathering together a directory of other wellbeing business owners and helping lift everybody up and help sort of share. It was like the Just Eat for wellbeing businesses. Great idea, not for me. Um, and so, like, having gone fully down that for a few months, it was pulling me away from the stuff that I really love doing that does light me up on a daily basis, which is one-to-one work. I'm really, really passionate about blending therapy and coaching together. I think that is something that doesn't happen enough. I think there are people who are a bit frightened of doing that. But it was something for me that when I trained in coaching, I then realized that I wanted to be able to go with people wherever they need to go. When you start, who knows what's gonna, people don't even know themselves what's gonna come out once you open up the door. And so I sort of trained to be able to make that a safe space to be able to go where people need to, and then especially specialized in ADHD coaching. But realizing that that's the work I love, that does light me up. That I could say never drains me. There are there's never client work that drains me. That always makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Of following that and being brave enough to follow that and actually being I feel really brave that I allowed the other one to just because I could have pushed on through and I could have said, I could make this work and so I'm going to do it. But to say, it's right for me, somebody else, please go run with it. I feel really strong in doing that. I feel really brave. And I
Absolutely.
feel good about saying that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, again, it goes against that, like, it goes against so many things we've been taught, doesn't it? The idea of, like, you've got to push through, the idea of, once you've built something, you need to see it through to the end. Like, there's so
Oh,
many things that
yeah.
it goes against
Mm,
to actually take something and be like, yeah, no, not for me. Like,
yeah.
I've done this now, and actually, I'm not kind of aligned with this. And there is this real kind of like thought process that once you've started something, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You just carry on. And like even you said at the beginning, like you'd gone into your career thinking that was going to be it for life. Like there's a
Yeah.
mentality
100%.
around
Yeah.
that, isn't there? Like this is how we do things. We do this job. And
What you
you do
do.
yeah, absolutely. You go into the job, you do the thing. And I do think that for younger generations, that is changing. I do think that
Yes,
younger
I do.
generations yeah, they're not looking for one career for their whole life. They're quite open to doing lots of different things, and I think that that's really incredible. But I know for me, when I was in school, it was very much, what career are you going to do? What do you want to be when you
Yeah.
grow up?
Yeah.
Like it was
What are you
like
going to
decide one
be?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
what do
even
you
what
want
are
to
you going
be?
to do. What do
Yeah,
you want to be?
yeah,
Ah, yeah.
absolutely. It's like it's such a different conversation when you actually think about, what you're instilling in children that they can only be one thing and it needs to be a good decision because once you decide, if you get it wrong, you're kind of, stuck in the thing that you
Yeah.
chose. Like there's a lot of yeah, a lot riding on a decision that a lot of people make when they're like in
Not ready
primary
to make that. Yeah.
like literally wild, really, when you think about it. But it's really nice to hear that kind of shift and actually, it doesn't have to always stay the same. It doesn't have to always be like one size fits all. Like you can develop and change things and move into new things. And I think it's so nice when I talk to guests who have started their own businesses and you can see that evolution and you can see that change in well, actually, I realized I needed more of this, and then I did more of this for my clients, and then like we just keep evolving in that way. I think that
Yeah.
there's real magic in that kind of evolution as a
It
business
feels
owner.
really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well because then you're coming from a place of like of real authority, of real understanding and knowledge, like rather
Yeah.
than just, oh, I read this in a textbook once, or, somebody once told me, like it's a very different concept. And I think a lot of the world is shifting. Like, yes, education is still really important, don't get me wrong, and, going through and doing further education and coaching qualifications and all of that stuff, like you learn so much from that. But there's
Yeah.
still so much to be said for that own life experience because until you've actually gone through something and done something and understood it yourself, it can be really
Yeah.
difficult to really make it mean something to somebody else.
Absolutely. It's that thing, isn't it, of being the guide 2 steps further along the path and being able to say, come with me. It feels it like I feel it feels insanely powerful, the stuff I know now.
Yeah.
I want to be like, come here, listen to this, try this, have you thought of it this way? And that's just something like, yeah, I love to share with people and see that change of like, what people think might help compared to what actually helps is often quite different. I've just the power of being able to share that, particularly even thinking about sharing it with young people. Like if you have these ways of doing things or ways of looking at things. But it also, like you say, it comes with the confidence or the life experience to be able to say, the rest of the world is promoting these messages, but you might feel better if you do this or live like that, or it takes some. You've got to you've got to try a lot of things out and see how things feel to know what's really going to help or what's going to be the right way for you. Because, like say some people really thrive on we all thrive on different things, is what I'm saying, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess so leading on from that, what would your advice be if people are coming into a healing themselves, if people are going through something a little bit, challenging, maybe they're trying to get to know themselves a little bit better, what would your advice be to somebody going through as they're going on the journey?
Just trust that it is so hard to listen into ourselves, so hard, because we think that the answer is out there. We think that if we listen to another, oh, I can say, listen to another podcast we're talking about. Don't listen to us, everybody. Turn off right now and go and sit in the garden, or find that place where you think, whatever you do, don't listen to podcasts. We think if we read another book, listen to another podcast, buy another planner, get that, buy a book, do some bullet journaling. We think the answers are out there in someone else. But if we can say one thing today, and I'm sure, I've listened to more audiobooks and more podcasts and read more books in the last 5 years than I don't know what. Um, and everything does give you something. You pick something up and you take it with you and you put it in your little toolbox or in your backpack. But at the end of the day, letting there be a bit of silence for trusting what you want to take from that and being you, doing more of the stuff you're good at and let other people take care of the rest is what I would want anybody to know, because it took me an awful long time. I mean, I'm ancient now. And when I think that if I'd known what I know now, we all say that though, don't we? But seriously, I feel like at 46, I'm ready to begin now. And I think that's it's a sad thing and it's a great thing, because I feel like I'm finally where I really want to be and where I need to be. But I think all those years, like trying to look for answers everywhere else, when really you just need to do whatever suits you and create the world that is made for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that the idea of going in, and
Yeah,
again, for so many people, I think they really struggle with that actually
absolutely.
slowing down, looking inside, figuring out what they need themselves and how they can sort of become the best version of themselves in really kind of being able to like strip back everything that isn't actually them. I hear so many people talk about this idea of like almost like trying to move towards the person that they're supposed to be. And in my
Yeah,
mind, it's actually the complete opposite. It's getting rid of all of the things that are not
yeah,
you and like stripping back all of the things. Like you don't have to become anything, you already are the thing.
yeah,
It very much is just like you were saying, like that. Actually, how do we slow down? How do we come away from all of those exterior ideas of what we should be, how we should feel, what we're allowed to do, all of that stuff, and be able to just kind of come back to, well, actually, this is how I want to be. And I think like one of the things that you said right at the beginning, like you left teaching, you took off your watch, you never put it back on again. Like I
mm,
absolutely love that concept of like, we're just gonna like throw time to the wind and just say like
yeah.
we're not doing that anymore.
I'm just on me time now, magic.
I
Magic
love it.
time I call it. It's when
I
things feel
literally love
right.
it.
Nightmare.
But like there's something so powerful in that of like actually we're just not going to prescribe to what everyone else says that we should do, or
Yeah,
what time we should start or what time we should finish or when we should work or like how we should do these things. Like I think actually it's really, really important for people to be able to actually get to know themselves and really understand what they need.
yeah. Well, I talk to people a lot about that. About it's what you add and what you subtract. It's like life maths, isn't it? It's like, what do you need to shed and let go of and get rid of? But what do you need to bring in? Sometimes when people are going through burnout, you feel like I need to stop. I need to close my world right down. Sometimes we do need to do that. We really need to power down and rest, but that's a choice. That's what we need, and we need to switch off from. Sometimes it can feel like we need to do that for a very long time, but it's also about what you then add in that makes you feel like you. And like it's only you know that. Like we need to know what I call like state shift. shifters, what are our things that can really shift our state of being, things that can bring us joy or energy, or, it's just making a whole, you might make a playlist that sounds like what you feel like. You might eat the foods that make you feel like you might go to places that are a bit of you. And it's just finding out what those state shifters are for you. It might be getting snuggled up in warm blankets, or it might be running into the freezing cold sea. Whatever does it for you, we need to find those things and do them, um, and see how we feel. But sometimes, like I say, it's about what we bring in to help us feel more like that version of ourselves. I use a framework that's my own, for coaching, which is laser. So it's what showing love to ourselves, accepting and affirming who we are, not who we think we should be, getting the right support around us, educating ourselves about what is going on and what we're experiencing, what the names for things are, because if we can name experiences that we're having, then we understand them better. And that other people are going through it too. And regulate is like the cornerstone of absolutely everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that little, that's so amazing. And we always include our guests' Instagrams and stuff like that below in the show notes so people
Yeah,
can obviously come across and they can come and talk to you and see what you do and all of that good stuff,
do.
which
Yeah.
is amazing. But our final question on the podcast is always my favorite question, which is this idea of your next level of healing. So, what is your kind of next trajectory of things that you're looking at doing and going through?
Yeah, I think for me, done so much on getting my building my life right. For me, I feel like I'm feel pretty good about that aspect. And for me, it's about finding how that translates into what I can do for other people. So what that looks like, the right kind of and the right balance of business offer. So growing into the sort of business realm of my life is where I really feel ready, because I think I felt like I needed to start with that about 5 years ago, but I was wrong, because there was been a lot of all of the other work. You're thinking it could just start there. I'm going to be self-employed. I'm going to build a business. Not at all. It's been, the whole journey of putting life right first, which can take an awful long time, and healing myself. But now I feel, like I say, I feel ready to begin now. I feel like, okay, let's go. And so figuring out what that looks like in a way that's sustainable and healthy and lives out all of the things that I really believe and doesn't pull me back into, unhealthy patterns. That's a challenge, but it's also, I feel, a form of healing, the sort of proof of being able to live that through and live that out, and to share that with other people. Um, is a challenge and a gift in another healing process. And I think that's the lifelong journey.
Absolutely. And I do think like we always talk on the podcast about this idea that like your first catalyst moment is normally much more um I don't know, big or scary or traumatic or like it feels like a much bigger shift. But actually, when you get this far down the journey and you've been doing it for a while and you know yourself really well, you're like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna make some big changes and we're gonna figure out some big things. But actually, it no longer feels as scary as it used to because you kind of
No,
like
you're
have brought
right.
yourself on that journey a little bit and you kind of trust yourself a bit more to actually go through that process.
Yeah, and I think that it feels exciting and like an opportunity. It feels like peeling off another layer or bringing another thing into focus, to use that analogy again. It's like it feels, um, powerful and right rather than scary. I think that's the thing that yeah, it's just about things coming into place and things feeling aligned. Um, Sometimes the biggest things we don't know when they happen, how big and transformative they're going to be, or the impact that they're going to have. It's just trusting and allowing. I think that's been a huge thing. I think that continues to be a huge thing. Trusting, having faith in what's coming will be okay and will be right, and that there are things around the corner that we will never see coming, but knowing that they're part of the story as well for all of us.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's such a beautiful ending to a podcast. Isn't that wonderful? But Jill, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to have you. It's such an honor.
It's
Thank
been
you
really
so
lovely
much
to
for
talk with
coming.
you.
Yeah, and sharing your story. I think that we need these stories in the world. I think it's really important. So thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
and being part of the podcast.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.